same E3 10 546 Khmer 01219657 is biography TSL 0704, and then a document E3/10563 Khmer ERN 01219750, and this is S21 biography TSL 3977. May I provide these three documents to the witness?
President, the chamber grants your request.
And if you could look at these three biographies, Mr. Witness, these are three other females who all entered S21 on the 18th of December 1978. All three are identified as relatives of 10 in the biographies. The first biography, and if we can show this on the screen, biography 0703 is by or B. Ken, a 75-year-old woman identified as the mother of Ah 10. The second biography, TSL 0704, is a 17-year-old girl, Prum Pu Po, identified as the niece of 10. And the third biography is, which is TSL 3977, is a 6-year-old girl named Nin, identified as the daughter of 10. Do you remember any of these people, Mr. Witness? Did Vornvet have a 75-year-old mother and 6-year-old daughter who were arrested and sent to S21 in December of 1978?
These three documents originated from S21. That's what I would like to tell you. But as for other matters, I cannot give any comments. I do not have knowledge about the two girls and the woman, whether they are daughters of Brother Von or not. Because I saw the sign TSL on the document, I can confirm that this document came from S21, and these people were really brought into S21.
Okay, no, we...
President, I give the floor to Counsel Victor Kope.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is another clear example of the witness using post-79 knowledge to identify documents. Obviously, TSL didn't exist as an identification form before 7 January 1979. TSL means Tool Sling Museum. So the witness now says, I know this is an S21 document because it says TSL. from a contemporaneous perspective, that doesn't make any sense. So my observation would be, or my request, Mr. President, to instruct the witness to give answers from his memory, not on the basis of something which is a clear post-79 indication.
Mr. President, this intervention is inappropriate. The witness is referencing the fact that this has a TSL document. This is a form that the witness is, and I will ask him if counsel wouldn't interrupt. It was going to be my next question whether he recognizes this form. This very form was identified by the last witness in this court as a form used for biographies of people who entered S21. We're not relying on post-79. This witness is competent to identify records that come from S21. But if I may, let me ask you, Mr. Witness, do you recognize the format of this document, the typed format of this as a form that was used while you were chairman of S21?
Yes, that format was in use at S21 at that time. And the written letter, I concluded that it was Ho's writing, although I haven't seen Ho's writing for a long time. It was 4 years ago when I was called as a witness in 2012. I believed that this document really came from S21 because the format in use at that time was like this, and the writing was probably belonged to Ho.
Now, the last biography is that of a 6-year-old girl named Nin, identified as the daughter of 10. This is the one that's identified as TSL 3977. You've testified, others have testified that it was not normal practice to register children of this age. Do you know why it was that a 6-year-old would be registered? What circumstances were there when children of this age would be registered on S21's lists?
This document was written by the administrative office. I do not have full knowledge on this aspect. As I said during my testimony as a witness, there were a number of documents which I did not see before, but there were written letters of Brother Chan and I on those documents, but I could not remember those documents. Brother Momnai also had an annotation on those documents, but I believe he also could not remember it. So that's the affairs of the administrative office, which developed from time to time. And these developments at the administrative office, I had no full knowledge of their work.
ខ្ញុំសូមចប់
Can you tell us, did any of the family members of Vornvet or Chung An who were sent to S21, did any of them survive? ខ្ញុំមិនចាំ
I cannot recall it, and I don't know. The 3 children that the court invited for testimonies, I don't know. A child who had been invited here was believed as an orphan from S21. I also cannot comment on him.
I wasn't asking about children in general. I was asking specifically about the wives of Vornvet and Cheng An and the other family members of Vornvet or Cheng An who were sent to S21, who were arrested and sent to S21. Did any of those people survive?
I do not have full knowledge of this. I did not grasp the full situation. Based on the procedure at that time, it was I who gave the instruction based on the order from Brother Noon. And there were only 4 children left behind when the Vietnamese came. But it surprised me when Nong Chanpal was invited to give the testimony in this court, and I did not know this particular person, Nong Chanpal. So I cannot comment whether any of Vornvet's relatives survived the regime. If some of them really survived the regime, it was probably one of the 3 left behind.
So just so I understand, you're saying you're not sure whether of the other 3 children who survived, whether it's possible. You don't know whether or not one of those 3 may have been a child of Vornvet or Cheng An. Do I understand correctly?
Main.
Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Witness, we've seen, I've asked you about the wives of Vornvet and Cheng An, who you indicated were smashed. Were you yourself afraid when Vornvet was arrested?
It's normal. As I testified in this court long time ago,
After the arrest of Ngài Julius Song and Chai Kumhoon, I was so afraid that I could not do my work. I went to stay by myself, isolating from others at the place where the sculpture was made. As to the instruction to smash everyone at S21, I became so desperate, so fatigued that I could not do anything. until the day the Vietnamese arrived. As for my wife, every time I was called by Onka to work, she trembled. She was so afraid that I would be arrested, and she felt better after she saw me returned on my motorbike. And that was a relief for her that I survived that day. Of course, the screening did not have an impact on just certain persons, but on everyone, including myself.
Let me read to you a part of an OCIJ interview that you gave. This is document E3/1578. E3/1578, Khmer ERN 00178-025, English 00194-550, French 00178-037. This is what you said in this interview. Quote, "One must understand that there were two categories of suspects. First, suspects because of their relatives. For example, Saum Meng, Saum Met, or Vorn Vet and his family. Second, subordinates of arrested superior cadres. For the first category, sometimes the whole family was arrested. For example, Vorn Vet. In other cases, surveillance was considered sufficient. For the second category, subordinates were closely watched. That's why when Hui of the paddy fields was arrested, his messenger was arrested too. And when Vornvet was arrested, I worried about my personal fate." End of quote. Were you worried when Vornvet was arrested because you had previously been a subordinate of his?
I have just stated, and allow me to repeat it. I became so fearful and concerned about my personal safety since 1973. That day I went to meet Brother Vaughan at night time, and he said, "Comrade Duch, your name was Kang Gek Kam, or something like that, and that I should be careful. It's difficult to trust anyone, and only Ngai Ju and Hong should be trusted." He later on verbs for the commerce. And what I did at the time was that I tried to understand the lines of the party, and that I should adhere to the lines so that I would not disappear. Because if I disappeared, it means the rest of the family members, including my wife and children and my parents, would disappear. I was the core person in my family, and I was the one who knew much more about the revolution. Later on, Ngai Ju Alice Hong was arrested. Here I go back a little bit. In 1975, I asked Comrade Khom to be married, and it was not agreed, and I was angry, and I talked to Pon, and Pon said, "You have to be careful, you should not get angry so easily, and if you were to be arrested by the party, the woman would become a widow, and what would happen to your family?" And that was what happened inside the CPK especially starting from 1973. And when I started working, Ngaju Elias Hong, who was fully trusted by the party, was arrested by Angka, and there was the times that my hair stood on end. So, in conclusion, that's what happened. As for my superior, Son Sen, he really liked to test his subordinates by looking through the facial expression. And allow me to say that on one occasion, one day at 5 o'clock, while I was still resting, and my wife was there, then the phone started ringing. I picked it up, and I could clearly hear the voice of Son Sen, and he asked me to press the encryption button, and I did that, and he immediately called me to meet him. I was so scared, but I had to show a firm facial expression before him, because I knew that he was the one who actually wanted to judge people based on their facial expressions. He looked at me, and I tried to be normal. And he said that the party required us to arrest Chan, the son of Brother Sun. I said, that would be no problem, because the person came to visit my residence rather often, and I could call him to go there at any time. He said, yes, you should do that. And he said, what pretext should I use? And I said that, Kamala Chan, you should bring films to be developed. And actually, I could even ask him to bring me a weapon. And he said, okay, I should proceed with that, but to keep this matter secret. And that was the way that Son Sen liked to play with the subordinates. That is, to instill fear within the subordinates. So after that, Brother Hock was also arrested, and I became so desperate. So I isolated myself by staying at the sculpture location. And of course, you could ask those people who work at that location to confirm what I have just said. Everybody was so fearful of being arrested at the time, because usually the arrest would be done to those who linked to the same line.
You just mentioned a meeting communication you had with Son Sen, where he told you the party required the arrest of, I hope I have the names right, the party required you to arrest Chan, brother of Sun. I don't know if I got those names right. Who were these people, the Chan and Sun? Who were these two people? Can you explain?
Chan was the revolutionary name. The native name was Jai Han. Jai Han alias Chan, who was the Deputy Secretary of Division 164. Later on, the party had a suspicion on him, so he was reassigned to the General Staff. That was the time that Chan Chakray was also arrested, and he was to be subject of under surveillance by NAD. And actually, I knew this person since 1967 within the revolutionary work. And Chan's father, or Jai Han's father, was Nong Sun, alias Jai Sun. And I believe you know this person who was a former resistant who was imprisoned along with me.
Thank you. With respect to Vornvet and Cheng An, after they were arrested, do you remember whether there were others, subordinates of theirs from the Ministry of Industry, who were also arrested?
I did not know who came to replace him at the Ministry of Industry. They came from the southwest. So I did not know about the screening process conducted by the incoming person who was in charge of the industry. The screening immediately after the arrest of Brother Vaughan was already part of the plan to arrest this person or that person. Here I refer to the Committee 870 of the Party Center, and I used to say yesterday that they were the standby committee.
I don't know if this is a translation issue. It's been translated a few times as standby committee. Are you referring to the standing committee?
I testified yesterday. The standing committee was different from the standby committee. There were two members of the standing committee who were not members of the standby committee.
So I'm clear now. When you use the term standby committee, you're referring to what you also called the group from Phnom Penh, the party center leaders in Phnom Penh. Is that correct?
Maybe this is a problem of interpretation. The standby committee means those who were members of the standing committee and who some were not members of the standing committee, and there were 6 of them. And based on the document of the party that I read, before 1967, that is before I went to the jungle, they were referred to as the Politburo of the party center, but Son Sen did not use the same phrase. He only used the word standing committee, or sometimes he referred to it as 870. And yesterday I spoke about it as for the former resistance. Usually they refer to the standing committee members as the intellectual groups or the Phnom Penh group. And 2 members of the standing committee were not members of the standby committee. They were secretaries of zones.
Okay, well, we'll come back and talk a little more about some of the upper echelon. And either later today or tomorrow, I'm going to ask you more about Vornvet himself, his arrest and interrogation, but we'll talk more about Vornvet himself later. I want to get back to the treatment of spouses and children who were sent to S21. When spouses and children were sent to S21, who were relatives of people accused of being traitors or enemies. Were the spouses and children usually interrogated or not?
Mostly they were not, and I do not recall whether Vin was even interrogated. To my understanding, she was not. As for Paul was not interrogated, and as for many other wives, they were not interrogated, or maybe they were interrogated briefly only before they were taken away. They deemed that these women were not of important role in politics.
These wives, for example, the wives of Vornvet and Chang'an, were they arrested because of something they had done, or were they arrested just because they were the spouses of people who were accused of being enemies?
To my current understanding, it is difficult to make that distinguish. Usually, if the husband had a role to play, more or less the wife has to involve. The most important aspect is that if the husband was arrested, the wife would also be arrested.
You've also indicated that the children would be arrested. Were children arrested because they were suspected of having done something wrong, or were the children arrested just because they were relatives of the people who were accused of being enemies?
This is a complicated issue to make any proper analysis. As in the case of Chan, the son of Jae-soon, he himself was also guilty of certain things. I think this person did not deserve to be a commander of a division, as he was a person who likes to make jokes. That's why he was reassigned from the division commander position to the general staff. For some other children, they were arrested because their fathers had been arrested, as in the case of Pain, the son of Brother Vaughan, who was a warplane pilot. And there were only 3 of these pilots at the time. And they were the children of cadres, including the son of Ieng Sari, Pain, the son of Vornvet, and Mei, the son of Son Sen. They were the only 3 pilots who were capable of navigating warplanes. The children were arrested because of the mistakes committed by the fathers. I believe in Chan's case, Chan was arrested, and somehow later on, Brother Jae, that is the father, was arrested.
How old was Chan?
He was about 5 years younger than me.
So when I refer to children, I'm referring not to people who are grown-up sons and daughters. I'm referring to young children, people who were 14 years or younger, and who did not have positions in the regime. Young children, were they arrested because they were accused of wrongdoing, or were they arrested just because they were the child of people accused of being enemies?
It is clear that when the mother or the father was brought in, the children had to be brought in as well. And that was a norm or part of the operation.
I want to, in relation to the issue of family members and whether or not to interrogate them, I'd like to show you a document I believe you've seen and asked about before. It is, Your Honor's, document E3/2047, E3/2047, and the first part of this document is a list of 18 people who are identified as family members of Sok and Mai Lun. With your leave, may I provide this to the witness?
Yes, you may.
Mr. Witness, can you look at the first page? Let's start with the first page of this document, E3/2047. Do you recognize this? Can you tell us what this document is?
This document was from Hoi, who was at the rice fields, and these people were arrested there and sent to S21 in Phnom Penh. Actually, Sok was an alias, for Sun Dara, who was secretary of the city committee during the resistance, that is prior to 17 April 1975, and that's what I wrote in the report, as you showed me yesterday, that they belong to the city's group, and not made a report about this city group people. As for Mai Lun, he was a professor, although I did not know the subjects that he taught. The party noted that he had tendency toward the Khmer Serai, or Free Khmer. Then he was reassigned by the party to work at the map section. And later on, he was sent to the rice field after a number of people had been arrested. As for the people who were arrested because they were the direct siblings or relatives of these individuals, and that is mentioned in this report, including the father, the mother, and the grandmother. They were arrested by Comrade Hoi because these people were family members of Sok. That is my understanding. And I made an annotation requesting to interrogate 4 of them, and the rest had to be smashed.
So just so we're clear, the annotation that appears at the top that says propose questioning for and smash or kill the others, that's your handwriting?
Yes, that is my handwriting, and that's the decision that I made in regards to this matter.
How was it decided which of these 18 family members would be interrogated or questioned?
The decision was made a long time ago, so what I say now is more or less my personal conclusion than the rationale that I had at the time. I ordered the mother and the father of Comrade Sokha to be questioned, and secondly, that they should be questioned about the dollar notes that were faked, and probably these were some parts of the rationales that I made at the time.
I was actually asking what the process was for determining this, and let me read to you something you said a number of years ago in OCIJ interview E3/1576, E3 1576, Khmer ERN 00159.564 to 65, English 00160.723, French ERN 00159.585. You were being asked in this interview about this document, and this is what you testified. Quote, I acknowledge having written in the top left corner, interrogate 4 persons, kill the rest. This list had been sent by Hui, who was in charge of the prisoners in the rice field at Presar. He had requested that 3 of these persons be interrogated, numbers 13, 14, and 15. I reported this to Son Sen by telephone, and Son Sen instructed me to interrogate the 4 persons mentioned under numbers 1, 2, 13, and 14, and to have the others executed. End of quote. Does that refresh your memory, Mr. Witness? Do you remember talking to Son Sen about which prisoners should be interrogated and which would be sent for execution? And do you remember having that conversation with Son Sen? And do you know whether you sent a copy of this document to Son Sen?
Regarding my statement that you just read out, it refreshed my memory that at that time, that during the time that I provided a statement, my memory was rather sharp. But now my memory is not that clear. Regarding my loan, Son Sen was more precise regarding this person, and he was part of the city group since 1973. And I read the document and I did not know whether I read it to him and he relayed his instruction or whether it was given to him in person. But as I said, the statement that you read out probably was a clear sign that my memory at the time was sharper than now.
And before we take our break, two of the people who were on this list that you talked to Son Sen about, numbers 7 and 8 on the list, were 6-year-old and 4-year-old girls, children. They were not part of the 4 who were to be interrogated, so they were part of the 14 to be executed. Did Son Sen authorize the killing of the 6-year-old and 4-year-old girl who were identified on this list?
Frankly speaking, at the present time, I cannot remember it. I cannot recall whether I sought authorization from Son Sen. So regarding these girls, if I made a report to him and he instructed me to question only 4 and he didn't give any specific instructions for the rest, it means that the rest has to be smashed.
Before we break, Your Honors, let me just note for the record, the group whose killing was decided in this document, you will find the names of these people who are recorded as being executed on 7 April 1977, the date of this report. You will find their names in the OCIJ list at numbers 3338, 3342, 3345, 3347, 3353 through 57, and 3360 records the execution of these individuals.
Thank you. It is now an appropriate time for a lunch break. We take a break now and resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Security personnel instructed to take Keo Sampon to the waiting room downstairs and get him returned to the courtroom this afternoon before 1:30. And Mr. Kang Kei-il shall be taken to the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties and invite him back into the courtroom this afternoon at 1:30. The court is now in recess.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ